Give me your gun.
What's going on over there?
Put the gun
I
down.
saw you with the box. What was in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box?
Not till you give me the
What's
gun.
in the fucking box?
Give me the gun.
He just told you.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. A couple of weeks back, Doc and I were having a conversation. We mentioned the sins of Marvel Comics. It sounded like people wanted to hear our list, so we put up the 7 deadly sins of Marvel Comics. And here with me to talk about that is not only the X-Men historian, but the Marvel aficionado himself. Doc, how you doing?
I'm great. This is kind of a throwaway joke about the 7 deadly sins of Marvel, and apparently it took on a life of its own in the comments. So we're here to actually tell you what our thoughts on the 7 deadly sins of Marvel are.
And actually, most of these are all come in within like the last 20 years. There's nothing too old in here. So it's mostly newer stuff, and most of these things are quite bad. We'll start out with Pride, number 1. We'll go with Age of X-Men. When Jordan White came in as a group editor of X-Men, we were supposed to get Jonathan Hickman as the writer of X-Men. It was delayed, and he had so much pride. His hubris was so terrible that he thought that it could just vomit out an event called Age of X-Men. And because it was X-Men, everybody would just read it, and they wouldn't care if it was good or not. This was pathetic.
It was. Jordan White had recently got, I guess you could say it was a promotion, and it was a relatively big promotion from the Star Wars line to the X-Men line. Because while Star Wars, they were trying to make it their marquee, it was X-Men is still as a group, as a series of books, is still their top dog. As much as they've tried to make Avengers into that over the last 15 years, it's still X-Men. X-Men has the cultural cachet and the historic cachet that Avengers does not. So him coming in there and immediately deciding to do an event,
They're putting 5 writers on Uncanny X-Men, which they essentially rebooted and told everybody this was the reboot of Uncanny X-Men, knowing they were going to reboot it again in 9 months. Put it out weekly for 10 weeks just to get to this event.
Yeah, it was.
As if it was going to be good.
It was complete hubris on the part of Jordan White to think that A, he could manage this, B, he could wrangle all the creatives in that short of a time span to put out that much content and for it to be actually good. Plus the fact that he wanted to trade on the anniversary of Age of Apocalypse. So outside of, X-Man is the character to have had life and legs outside of the Age of Apocalypse storyline. Because he's been around, he was the only hero character to really continue on from that era. There was 4 characters that came over from the Age of Apocalypse universe. At the end of that, X-Man was the only hero in that, and he looks
completely unusable now after this event.
He does. He wrecked the character. He just ruined him completely. And it made no damn sense. So it was his complete hubris and his pride that made him do this. It was bullshit.
Absolutely. Let's get into Greed. This one was hard to nail down. There's so many things that we could go with. The top one we decided to go with was Sequential Milestones, where you got Amazing Spider-Man 49 is number 850, so they can absolutely bend you over for number 50. There's also, when we got Uncanny X-Men 1, it was $10. We got Uncanny X-Men 10. They decided that was a milestone. $10, and I believe, was it 11 when Wolverine and Cyclops met for the first time? And it was another $10 comic book?
Yep. The sequential milestones and the random, just miscellaneous $10 issues. The first time I saw the sequential milestones that made me pissed off was the Peter David's second run on X Factor, the X Factor Investigations one. They did an issue 50 which would have been actually issue 199 because the first series ended at issue 149. So they did issue 50, and then the next month they did issue 200 and the sequential milestones. And then they did it
I'm
with
shocked
Spider-Man.
they didn't do the number 1 and reboot it the next month and get 3 of them out of that motherfucker.
That was when this was before Marvel was rebooting that regularly. This would have been like 2010. They weren't quite to the let's reboot.
They did that
every
with the
15
end
years.
of not Al, with the end of Dan Slott's run. So you had you had whatever it was. It was a milestone for $7.99.
Yep.
800 was the next milestone, the end of his run, and they rebooted it number 1, and they got 3 back-to-back milestone issues, 3 back-to-back months.
Yep.
Disgusting.
Well, actually, no, they did issue 801, and then they rebooted it.
Okay, they got 3 and 4 for it.
Yep. And then they rebooted it. So it was some serious bullshit.
Also,
and-
what they do with Spider-Man now with the dot issues, so they can make it a monthly book but not have it monthly.
Yes. That was, the dot issues just seemed like, hey, we know that random out of continuity miniseries don't sell, so we're going to somehow manage to tack this onto the ongoing
Amazing
series.
Spider, right?
Yes.
They want Amazing Spider-Man pasted at the top, and then little bitty letters. It says, whatever the 3-letter designator that means this is absolute bullshit.
Yes. And for the ASM completists to go, fuck, I have to pick this up. Whereas if it was just Spider-Man, Thin Ice, they'd be like, I'm not reading
Sins
that.
remain special. Whatever.
Yeah. But when you slap issue 659 dot 1, 2, and 6 on there, they're like, fuck, I gotta pick it up because I'm a Spider-Man I'm an ASM completist. So that's definitely they're definitely greedy in that way. Deadpool had random $10 issues out of nowhere.
Yeah, Deadpool 1000.
Yep. They did a bunch of 1000 issues. They did Wolverine 1000. They did. And then after they did that, they're like, well, fuck, we can't do Wolverine 1000 again. Oh, but we could do Wolverine 900. What?
Just so ridiculous. There's so much greed going on at Marvel. Let's move on to Lust. This one was, there's one story that just came right into mind, but you could pick a lot of things. We're going to go with Amazing Spider-Man Sins Past. And this is the one where essentially Peter Parker becomes the ultimate simp. And we learned that Norman Osborn in the past was actually the one that had slept with Gwen Stacy before she died, and she had his kids.
Yep. Peter Parker got cucked by his nemesis with his 20-year-old girlfriend by a dude that was in his 40s already. What the fuck? Look, JMS did a lot of really good stuff on Spider-Man, but that's the one that, not only that, but Gwen has 2 kids running around that are twins that, wait, huh? And somehow they're adults already, even with Marvel's sliding timeline. I don't understand how any of this works, unless maybe she must have been 18 at the time. Jesus Christ, this is so wrong.
It was creepy. It was gross. And why would you do this to your flagship character?
And that's when Mike Deodato Jr. was doing it, and he was in hardcore photo referencing mode. So it was Gwen getting banged by Tommy Lee Jones, because that's who he made Norman Osborn look like. When every time Mike Deodato Jr. drew Norman Osborn, it was Tommy Lee Jones with Norman's haircut. It was so weird.
From what was he in, Under Siege?
No.
Is it Tommy Lee Jones
from
The Fugitive? Okay, those are 2 different Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, it was from The Fugitive when he was the cop chasing Harrison Ford around. Yeah.
I even remember the sequel. Was that when where they were after Wesley Snipes? Remember that?
Yeah. damn, I don't remember what the name of it was because Wesley Snipes did a bunch of them. They were basically
It's whatever
the same
office
movie.
that they worked for. That was the name of the movie.
Yeah.
U.S. something, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, since past, what an awful story. What a way to just like kick all of your Amazing Spider-Man fans just right in the balls. Like, why did you read this for so long, you idiot?
And then, I mean, it gets even worse that they did One More Day later.
One More Day, yeah.
So, yeah, Spider-Man fans, we've had it a little rough. But let's move on to our next
Let's
scene.
get to Envy. So this one's coming out of nowhere, Doc. I forgot about this. Remember when Detective Comics 1000, actually it's Action Comics that 1000 comes out, they get to charge $10. DC does. It makes a ton of money. Detective Comics 1000 comes out because it's on this 1000 issue. Get to charge $10, make a ton of money. Marvel Comics had nothing that was hitting 1000, so they decided to retroactively decide that Marvel Comics, which never even got into the 300s, I believe, would become their 1000th issue. Absolute envy over the sales that DC was getting for their huge milestones that they had to publish for 80 years straight without stopping to achieve. They didn't want to wait the 80 years, Doc. They were completely envious of all those sales and all that cheddar that was running in. They just decided to make up a milestone. Marvel Comics 1000 and charge $12.
Yeah, that was pure envy. They saw DC able to do it, and Jesus Christ, like nobody bought this. It was like nobody bought their rationale. Like
nobody
everybody
bought their bullshit.
Nobody bought the bullshit on it. Like we all knew they were just trying to come up with some way to make it make sense. And no matter what they did, everybody was like, yeah, dude, you're nowhere close to 1000. They just didn't want to wait the extra,
well, the 5 years Amazing Spider-Man comics that they're putting out, they were going to get to 1000 pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, but they'd still be about 5 years off of hitting ASM 1000, and ASM would have been their first book to hit 1000. And hell, they could have even probably done it again if they would have grabbed a bunch of random mini-series and said, nope, these are actually, we're going to fold them into
You wanted to recount again? That was another.
Yeah, like Legacy. Yeah, like they could probably have been like, okay, yeah, we're actually at issue 975, so 18 months from now, we're totally getting a Spider-Man 1000. But no, when they got envious of DC's money and just made up a 1000 issue out of nowhere, pure envy.
Absolutely. That's not the only time they were envious of Wildstorm. They started importing all their talent to run their Ultimate line. Well, look at Wildstorm and how successful they are. They're critically acclaimed. Nobody will give us critical acclaim. We'll just steal all their talent.
Yeah, they did it with, they brought in Warren Ellis, Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, Brian Hitch, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and they started sticking them on everything, especially on the Ultimate line. I mean, you look, Hitch and Miller were both big names at different times writing or working on the Authority, which was absolutely the biggest widescreen everything book that was out there. And then they just stuck them together and said, hey, do the Authority, but with the Avengers, and call it the Ultimates. And I mean, hell, that ended up as like the kind of the basis for the MCU.
Absolutely. That's Captain America you get.
Yeah, we got patterned off of the MCU. The MCU got patterned off of the Ultimate line, and all of that was with stolen talent from Wildstorm, because Wildstorm was doing the Authority.
Well, it wasn't stolen. It's not like they kidnapped him. No. It's poaching, Doc. It's poaching.
Fine, they poached the talent from Wildstorm between the Authority Revolution, Sleeper, Wildcats 3.0. They just, every single one of those books that would get critically acclaimed, Marvel would come in and poach the talent to bring over and stick them on the Ultimate line. And it was kind of amusing.
Absolutely. So let's get into Gluttony. And we're going to go with the ratio variant covers.
Oh yeah.
When you're dwindling your fan base, your readership starts to go down, but you still have hardcore collectors out there like yourself and others. You start making up these ratio variants, and then you getting up to a 1 in 1,000 ratio variant with a special Jim Lee cover for X-Men Gold, and you kill the golden goose, and maybe you kill a completionist out there. Ratio variant covers.
Yep.
They can be cool. It's a cool idea, but there's just so much of it. It's destroying everything.
Well, yeah, it's, it is kind of the definition of gluttony, because every single month, every single time they were doing it, it was a little less effective and a little less effective and a little less effective. So they started making higher and higher and higher ratios to get the same results. You know, what you were getting on a 1 in 10 before ended up being the 1 in 25 numbers later. What you were getting order wise on the 1 in 25s became the 1 in 50s in order to get the same kind of result. And it's like, you know, constantly feeding. You're getting bigger, or being an addict. You know, you keep having to take a little bit more and a little bit more to get that same high. That is the definition.
Not to
of
mention,
gluttony.
you've got comic shops just filled with comics that they can't sell because they had to order more than their customers really wanted, just so they could sell the ratio variant to a special customer.
Exactly. And the stores, they're losing customers, so they have to eat more and more and more of the remaining customers' money in order to keep surviving. It's almost the definition of gluttony. It's just more and more and more, and never being satisfied, never being
waiting for the 1 in 2,500.
There was a Jim Lee 1 in 5,000 that actually had. Now, granted, that actually had a brand new original art sketch on the cover, and I think that was from the Dark Knight 3. The Master Race. I think that's
DC, man. We're talking about Marvel.
I know, but there was a 1 in 5,000 already. But Marvel's going to hit that 1 in 2,500 sooner or later.
Absolutely, they got to. Let's get into Wrath. This is one of the most insane things I've ever seen a comic company do. But because Marvel Studios didn't have the rights to Fantastic Four and X-Men, they were with Fox. I guess they weren't happy about it. They decided to destroy their own marquee franchises within the comic universe, downplay them, try to replace the X-Men with the Inhumans, and basically just made the Fantastic Four persona non grata just to prove a point against Fox.
It was
only Ike Perlmutter could be this destructive.
Exactly. I mean, there was. Now I don't know if this is 100% true, but I know there was a rumor that was going around that Ike walked through the Marvel offices and told employees, even in their own private cubicles that they get to decorate in their offices, if there was any Fantastic Four posters, rip them down. He would rip them down and throw them away because he didn't want any Fantastic Four references up in that office because he was that pissed. Because, you know, whenever the Fox had Daredevil, and they were in the process of trying to get another Daredevil movie, and apparently it missed some deadline that they had to meet, and they ended up in negotiations with Marvel to try to extend the rights window, and Marvel made demands. They wanted the Silver Surfer and Galactus, and I think maybe Kang, because those rights were all tied up with the Fantastic Four rights. And they said, if you give us these back, we will let you make your Daredevil movie and extend your window. And then it would kind of restarted the rights process again. Fox said no. So at that point, that's when I heard that it all just went to hell. When Fox wouldn't give anything back in order to keep the window for the Daredevil movie that they were going to make. And that's when I heard that it just went to hell, and Ike just went pure wrath in that office. It was, I want no references at all. They that's when I think that they plan to do they started making all the plans for where the Hickman era of Fantastic Four was going to go towards Secret War, and then basically getting rid of the first family of Marvel. Yeah, that's pure wrath.
Yeah. The comic book that literally started Marvel Comics as we know it, and then the team that was the hottest title, through the 80s and into the 90s. It absolutely, showed that you could do cartoons and video games and make all this money with them. And they just got to destroy them
to prove a point. Yep.
Let's get into Sloth. Just pure laziness. There's nothing else that we could even consider for this. It's the nonstop events.
It is.
They don't want to have to write good quality stories that maintain subplots and you're really executing at a high level for a long time. You want to just be able to hit a stopping point and tie everything into a stupid event that you can say is the biggest earth-shattering thing in the history of Marvel Comics. And of course, the problem is these don't happen every 2 or 3 years now. They happen every 2 or 3 months. It's absolutely frustrating. It's the laziest kind of writing you've ever seen.
It is. It's pure laziness. I mean, I can make a Dan Sloth joke right now, and him not even being able to finish his Iron Man 2020 on time, but that it is an example. It's low energy. It is the low hanging fruit of Marvel is do an event. And
now it's not even just do an event. Let's reboot an event. Let's reboot a title. Let's do Heroes Reborn. Let's do instead of Age of Apocalypse, let's call it Heroes Reborn. Tie those in together. We got Inferno coming out. Every year we get an Infinity Gauntlet story.
Yeah, and it's pure laziness because it's creatively bankrupt. There's no effort have to get put in. All they have to do is trade on nostalgia and existing names. They don't have to put in the work that actually that made all those things that they're trading on the nostalgia of actually have the nostalgia factor to trade for. Like they forgot, and they're not willing to put in any of the work that made those events. Infinity Gauntlet was the culmination of years and years of plots and subplots and miniseries that Jim Starlin was putting together, and that ended in the Infinity Gauntlet and made that actually fucking matter. And now they just do another lazy, hey, Infinity Gems.
The Infinity Stones are basically the Green Lantern rings. They're sentient and they find their wielder now.
Yeah, and every year they're doing
Thanos' son is hiding on Earth.
Yay! Hey, let's do Age of Apocalypse, except for with the Avengers this time. Let's just call this. We're the anniversary of Age of Apocalypse. Let's call it Age of X-Man, and all of these they're shoehorned in. There's no subplots. It's the reason why, like right now, like what's going on in ASM with Sinister War. Yeah, it's trading on that, like the a little bit of nostalgia from the Sinister Six, but it's basically saying, hey, we remember that there were so many incarnations of them. Let's stick them all together, and but they've been building this subplot for 75, almost 80 issues if you count all the miniseries and one shots. Yeah. And so that makes it worth it, but everything else, it's just shoehorned bullshit nonsense. We got basically Atlantis attacks in Avengers. We got, a photocopy of all of the X-Men, the Phoenix Five fighting each other in the Phoenix tournament. Avengers is nothing but nostalgia bait. But yeah, it's just pure laziness.
Absolutely. So those are the 7 deadly sins of Marvel Comics we covered. Pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. I want to say thank you very much to Doc for joining us. If you want another video where we do something like this, let us know in the video or the comment section. We wouldn't have made this if you guys didn't let us know, hey, we want to see that sin video.
Yeah, and if you got your own sins, put them in the comments. We want to hear what you think the sins of Marvel Comics are.
Absolutely.